My hair is wet, so forgive all the product in my hair. I'm just like waiting, and it's humid out here. Listen, I get it. Nobody wants to fuck up the vibe, but the vibe is fucked, and we need to talk about it, you know? And especially this week when we're living in this world, especially as a fourth generation Washingtonian, I feel this acutely, but it's kind of like we've got clear evidence that we are exactly where we think we are, exactly where we don't want to be. And yet we're still out here kind of doing this like la 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 thing. You know, and I also don't want it to be this tenor where it's like we're just constantly screaming about, we hate so much. Like that's also not motivating. I get it. And so I wonder from where I'm sitting is kind of like, how do we ask ourselves the questions that we need to ask so that we can start creating some type of action? I guess there's a part of me that senses that we're almost avoiding the work of having to grieve lives that we're realizing we might not see. Like so much of this grief that we're trying to contend with is definitely about what is happening, what we know is happening, even if we're like not really willing to talk about it or we feel like it's so consuming that we can't talk about it, whatever the case may be. But there's another part of it that feels like it is about us sensing that the ideas that we had for our lives, the visions that we had in our minds, the reasons why, you know, we have worked so hard and in some ways, for some of us, sacrificed and maybe even betrayed truer parts of ourselves to try to attain what we thought would be the ultimate kind of like idea or like promised land, even though I hate using that, you know, kind of like term. And so, so much of this is about us grieving what we feel like we've already lost and like are waiting to just maybe admit it to ourselves. But to me, there are also parts of that are a choice. The choice to feel like we have already lost to me is just ceding power and just basically forfeiting the entire game. I almost feel like there's this paralysis of like, well, what are we going to do? We don't know what we're going to do. And so we're not really doing anything. And I can't help but wonder, how is it that we are going to figure out what to do if we're not even willing to really talk about it amongst ourselves? If we're not even willing to talk about it beyond like, oh, this shit is horrible. Like, you know, damn, you know, I'm looking for us to start talking about, okay, but like, what can what can I do? What can we do? Who are we in our communities? Who are we in our worlds? How is it that we can start illustrating the ways in which the buck stops with us, even if it's in the smallest of ways? There's this level of practice disempowerment that I'm worried is going to seal our fate. And what kills me the most, besides the fact that we're in this situation, is that I don't know if we're seeing the ways in which we're opting in. Is this just a fear of failure? Is that why we won't kind of figure out what to do and what to try? We don't know how to talk about our lack of knowing. And so we just kind of keep defaulting to the fact of like, or to this idea that like we don't know what exactly to do. And because nobody has ideas, you know, we're just going to kind of just try to make ourselves feel better in this moment. Why are we so unwilling to fumble through our lives? Like, why do we feel like we have to know exactly what to do instead of coming together in the figuring out and the attempting? I know that we're looking for some broader strategy, but there's a part of me that feels like the attempt is the strategy. The attempt at proving to ourselves that we can try something differently. The attempt at making the case to ourselves that even in our immediate lives, like we can show up differently. We can surprise ourselves because everything that's to come is unwritten. And I feel like we're starting to, maybe not even starting, but it's almost like we're forfeiting the game because we don't know how to practice possibility. And because we haven't seen illustrations of like what could be, we're stuck thinking that we've kind of seen all that the world and all that life has to offer. And I'm sorry, like I'm just not willing to go out like that, especially for people who are in a position, who have been very privileged and have seen so much opportunity. Even if you don't know exactly what to do, what I am submitting to all of us is that there is such a privilege of imagination. And in order to start to imagine and define what new alternatives look like, we have to start talking about what it is that we don't know, what it is that we think could be possible, what it is that we think isn't possible by virtue of the fact that we just haven't seen it before, but that to me is all the more reason to attempt to prove it to ourselves. How do we create proof? Because at this point, it's like, do we want more for ourselves? Or do we only want the more that we don't have to imagine? This grappling that we're going to have to do with this level of uncertainty and feeling our way through this and fumbling and just look, it's not sexy. There's nothing cute about it. And I think that that's what we have to break this addiction to. The country is dying. And for whatever reason, I feel like that is okay, this version of it. And it's like, is it that we haven't attended enough of our own deaths to feel like another version of this country is possible? Because there are so many past versions of me that I've had to leave behind, and I've had to meet the newest versions of myself. And I've also gone back for parts of myself that I realized, oh no, I need her. It is no different than what's going on in this macro. And so if we could start practicing what it looks like to condition those muscles right now within our own little worlds in this exact moment, because there is no going back and we are exactly where we think that we are, I guarantee you we can start building a yellow brick road. I do not want to suffocate in this nihilism, in this defeatism, in this feeling like they got it, they won. I think we're letting them have it because we are unwilling to look ourselves in the mirror and say, this might be uncomfortable, but we are at the cutting edge of becoming something that we have never seen before that might just blow all of our fucking minds. We're nervous. We're scared. We're confused. We're all the things. But I guarantee you, even if this were the best case scenario, those experiences aren't going away. They're just going to change shape. And so, the most strategic thing that we can do right now in this moment is start practicing the muscles of what it means to evolve beyond what we know in real time. The ugly, messy birth of midwifing the next version of who it is that we're supposed to be, and hospicing this version of the world that has been so fucking cruel and so unfair. And I'm asking us all to stop hiding from this moment because it's here.